Unit 2, building your portfolio and populating your website. So let's start with building your portfolio. This is a sort of chicken and egg question. So let's just say that you are a photographer in your own right and you have a field of work which is property, architecture, portraiture. So you've been a photographer for 15 years, you want to move into weddings. How do you do that? You don't have a portfolio. First of all, do you? So when I started 10 years ago, I wasn't a wedding photographer, but I did have some weddings. So I had about 8 weddings that I'd shot from family and friends. A lot of them were film because I started in 2008. And at that point, the digital revolution was just taking in. So the weddings I had were film based over the last 15, 20 years. And I went through my negs and I made scans and I chose 60 pictures. Now I'm going to come to that later about the amount of photos, but I did choose 60. And I then created a narrative and uploaded those to a website. And I used a template website, which was affordable and quick to show my work. And I sold myself as a reportage photographer. I didn't really have many kind of couple photos, and I had a few details, but it was mostly people, and that's what I was selling. So it fitted in with the genre I wanted, and I built from there. Let's just say that you are a new career photographer. So you want to shift from a career outside of photography into wedding photography, and many people do it. I've taught people and trained them, and they've left their jobs and become wedding photographers, and successful ones. So let's say you're this scenario. It's a different sort of situation. You're learning photography, but you're also learning about weddings as well. In this case, I think it's a different challenge. I think, how do you build a book when you don't have any work? How do you become a wedding photographer when you don't have any wedding photos in the first place? I think this needs to be a slow process. This needs to be a considered process. So I think there's different ways to do it, but let's start with workshops. So put yourself on wedding workshops. So these are workshops led by photographers that will encourage you to come along, and they set up shoots. So these shoots will be in venues that the photographer has chosen, with models, with makeup artists, with floral designers and so on. So they're doing workshops, encouraging you, and there might be some payment involved for you to come along and learn from them. And I've led these workshops, and I find that I get a lot of photographers that are early career or wanting to shift into the field and maybe done 1 or 2 weddings, and they're finding themselves in these credible situations where they're producing quality of work in environments in which they might not reach that for many years, in luxury hotels and so on. So I think there's value in it. I think you need to be clear though, if you're showing that on your website, that these aren't a real wedding, that it's a style shoot, it's a workshop shoot, but it's still reflective of your work. You've produced these images, they're your work, you own those images, and I think that's fine to show it. I think just be clear and honest that then it's not a real wedding, but it starts showing images, and particularly if you're doing these workshops and they've got tableware and details, and you can start to shoot details on tables, and often they're luxury, so you can very quickly produce really beautiful quality for your portfolio. So I think it's worth thinking about investing. It's maybe just as valued as a lens, doing 2 or 3 workshops where you can physically produce work and come away with work that elevates your brand at a quick pace, particularly if you don't have anything in the first place. I know photographers that do discounts. Of course, that's something you could consider, whatever feels right for you. I've even seen photographers say, I'm starting my business, and they're offering shoots for free. I never did it. In my case, I use Google Ads. I'm going to come to marketing later, but when I started, as I said at the beginning of this unit, I had around 60 pictures that I was able to build from, and I used Google Ads to then promote that and built my portfolio from there. So I've never done a wedding for free, unless it's like a very close family member as a gift. So I think this unit is connected to Unit 9. So it's worth just keeping that in mind, where Unit 9 is about your ideal client. Because from the point in which you want to build your portfolio, I think you need to think about where you want to go. So what kind of approach do you want? Where do you want to end up? Do you want to be doing destination shoots all the time? Do you want to be doing barn photography? And there's lots of people that specialize in barn photography. Do you want to be specialized in like a grungy urban type shoots? Of course, there's many great photographers that do that too. In my case, it's luxury hotels, destinations, big teams. But the work needs to reflect that. So if you do want to be doing luxury hotels, then it's hard to find luxury hotels if all your portfolio are barns. So I think you need at the beginning to be very clear about what it is, and where you want to go. At the same time, I'm not saying you dismiss a barn shoot, because it's all about building up your work, building up your experiences, and building up your income, and you can reinvest. So I'm not saying turn down work because it's not the right type of shoot, but at the same time, be clear about your website and about building your portfolio in a direction you want it to go. So there's a sort of consistency that's building, and that will reflect a sort of specialism that you'll be well known for, which is where you want to get to. So let's talk about the website itself. Now, I think you need a minimum of 60 pictures in your wedding gallery. And I think that's a mixture of different areas, which I'm going to concentrate on now. Let's just say you're starting out, or you've been practicing for a couple of years. This is just worth rethinking about what you've got on your website. So I would say, if you're looking at 60 pictures as your gallery, what are they broken down into? So I would start with, say, 10 pictures of details. So these are details of the tables, of signage, of the room, exteriors, and so on. So, and they may be mixed in the story, but I think you need at least 10 of those 60 to show great, beautiful detail shots, just to show that you can do them and that they're important to you and your brand. A key area that you need to show are couple shots. And some photographers I've looked at, and I've looked at many, just show couple shots and bridal shots. It's almost as if that's all they ever photograph. And I think that is potentially misleading, because they're booked for a whole day, and yet where is that other work? How's that affecting them in bookings if all their portfolio is just couple photos? So I think you need to have couple photos, so important obviously, and it needs to reflect your style that you're arguing in your bio and so on. But at the same time, it needs to be a balance of work across your storytelling. So I would say 20 couple photos. So I think you need 10 shots for preparation shots, and I'd balance that between both individuals. I think you need 10 photographs from reception. So moments of guests, a lot of laughter, emotion, capture that, and so on. So you need some feeling of a wider space. It's not just about details of prep and the couple. So you want to show something wider. And I think you want some evening. You want some great dancing moments, maybe backlit and so on, and some wider guest shots. So when you look at the work, you look at the 60 pictures, it's mixed between details, couple shots, preparation, reception, mixed in with dance and evening, maybe 1 or 2 speeches and so on, just to get a feel of what it is that you're covering a whole day and you're covering it consistently. So this is quite important to me, and it's how I've built my business, that I have over the years constantly replaced my work. So at the end of each year, I sit down and look at the shoots I've done in that year, and I then make a highlights of all of those shoots. So let's just take 2017, looked at the weddings I've done, I've put them all into one catalogue, and I've chosen my favourite 100 pictures from those weddings. And then I've looked at, the question is, are those weddings which have not signed NDAs, so I can show these images, which of those weddings will add something to my existing portfolio that I'm showing on my website? How can it improve it, and so on. And in the early days, that was so much simpler and obvious to do. And I think if you're not showing your new weddings, then you're not improving, because as you produce more, you produce going into new venues, your work's getting better, you're getting more experience, and the level's getting higher, and it needs to be reflected. And if your level's being reflected in your portfolio, then your price gets better as well. And you can keep lifting and lifting and lifting by replacing, by replacing, and by replacing. And that reflects your albums as well. And I know this means that there's an investment issue, which is temporary, but I think you've got to consciously do it. So what I mean here, say year 1, you make 3 albums, and that's costing you £250 an album, sample albums, and that's £750 for 3 albums. That's a big investment, I understand. But what I'm saying is you need to think of that as a temporary investment. That's just like a marketing budget. That's £750 that after 12 months you're going to reinvest. And the reason why you're reinvesting is that those albums represent the best of your work at that point. But the following year, then you've got another range of weddings, another 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 weddings. Then you need to sit down and say, you know what? There's so much better work now. Let's just forget those 3. Look at my best 3 from this year, and then remake those albums. So constantly you're building your quality, and you're building the quality of your albums, and you're building the quality of your work, and you just don't stop. It just keeps going and going and going. And this is the model I've taken. So my albums get better, the work gets better, the price gets higher. I think another point on your website is your bio. I think it's so important to be genuine, to be sincere. I think you've got to shout about your accolades. So if you have any accolades, either outside of weddings and inside of weddings, I think it's important. Qualifications, are they important? For me, I think they are. If you've got a degree in photography, then say you've got a degree in photography at this university. If you've taken workshops, mention you've taken workshops. If you've achieved some awards, mention what those awards are. I think you just need to substantiate those awards. Don't just say I've won 5 awards and not say what those awards are. They need to be notable and they need to be verifiable. That's essential. Too many photographers just say I've won 5 awards or I've won award winning, but there's no evidence of awards. So avoid that. But when you win them, shout about them. That's really important. Just as you improve your work and show your work, you need to at the same time mention your accolades. But at the same time as all of this, your bio needs to be authentic and genuine in my view. Avoid looking at other people's bios. Think about what you feel. Think about what weddings mean to you and be honest. Maybe even go for personal rather than saying John Nassari has worked in this field for 10 years and so on. My bio does take that approach. I think some strong bios are personal, and I've seen some wonderful top-end, high-end, global, brilliant photographers that talk from the self. And they're saying, this is why I do weddings. This is what I feel about weddings. This is what you'll get from me when I go to a wedding. And that kind of honesty, you just feels it's likable, it's personal, and it's powerful. And I think that's an important approach to take in your statement. At the same time, in your statement, I think be clear about your approach. So if you're saying you are a documentary wedding photographer, then show your work that reflects that. Don't show a gallery full of staged photos if in your bio it says you're a documentary photographer. There's a contradiction and there's a paradox. There's a conflict. So just make sure that what you say and what you show match. And be clear about that from the beginning. So this is all about setting it clear from the beginning. That you think about what type of wedding photographer you are and what you want to do, and your bio should reflect that. And we're noticing different genres taking place. So sometimes bios do create some sort of hybrid relationship of genre. So I've seen bios that say, I'm a candid documentary wedding photographer. And then later on in the biography, it says, for couple shots, I like to stage my portraits. So suddenly we're noticing these different genres. But maybe that's fine too. I think as long as you're clear in your bio and your work reflects it, I think that's fine. Just about transparency and continuity and consistency. This is the message you want to give.